Today, I want to share and talk about something that I think is a pretty big part of my identity, which is the topic of sexuality. So, recently, I realized that there's not much of queer content on YouTube. There definitely is, but I feel like it's quite limited to certain types of content. And I just honestly wanted to create a safe space for myself because even though I do have a lot of supportive and queer friends around me, they are a different type of queer. And I feel like it's kind of difficult for them to truly understand what I think and what I go through. Not in a bad way, but I just wanted to create a space for myself where I don't have to think about whether people really understand me or not. I just wanted to share my experiences. I wrote down a few talking points, starting off with realizing I was queer. How did I realize I was queer? So, I think it was around primary school. It was, I think, around 12 or 13 years old. I had a dream. I had a gay dream about a girl. Okay, I dreamt about a girl. I woke up, and later that day, I was in the shower and I started crying. Crying for the fear that I would not be able to accomplish the ultimate life goal of being a wife to a man and having children, which, by the way, like saying that made me like, you know, you're brought up to kind of think and believe that that's the only route that you can go through, especially being in an Asian household, I feel. So that day in the shower, I cried. I cried. I was so scared. I was so afraid of being completely gay that I quickly labeled myself as a bisexual. I told myself and I told everyone around me that I was bisexual, almost as if to force myself to take accountability, to tell everyone that in the end I will and probably will end up with a man. I'll probably end up dating a boy because I told myself, okay, if I'm bisexual, at least there's a chance that I will end up with a guy, which is a very sad and terrifying thing for a kid to go through. I think that that thought process was really sad and it just breaks my heart a little to think that I was so afraid of embracing my queerness. By the way, I am currently unlabeled because I feel like I don't want people to have expectations of me. So let me talk to you about how I went from being openly bisexual to now unlabeled. I have a bad experience in primary school when I was about 15, 14, where someone in front of the entire canteen yelled across from another table, yelling to everyone that she's bisexual in a derogatory way. And I remember that day I felt so ashamed, not of my sexuality, but because someone said something that was part of my identity in such a negative way in front of everybody as if that was something to be ashamed about. I think I was more so embarrassed that it wasn't a trait. Being queer wasn't a trait that I was ready to defend myself for at that time. I didn't learn to defend myself till much later, much later. I think maybe 16, 17. That's when I learned how to use my voice. Even though I clearly can speak well, but it was so hard for me to defend myself because at that point I felt like I wasn't worth defending for, even though it was just myself. I think after that experience, I realized that my sexuality was something that I wanted to keep more personal and vulnerable to me. So I kind of stopped announcing to everyone. And around this time, I also decided that I didn't want to go by telling people I was bisexual anymore. I just wanted to be unlabeled because I think that's fantastic. And it's just great because I feel like people don't have expectations of me on who I'm supposed to date. I feel like as a bisexual, people will kind of decide, okay, let's say like, oh, you like this guy, you date this guy, then now you have to date a girl. Like, I feel like there's that kind of expectation that you have to date both. But, well, that doesn't really affect me because I haven't dated anyone before, but I definitely do feel that that's a thing. And going on about this topic also, I also wrote down the point of invalidating my own queerness. I think that's something that people think about a lot, especially when you're in the LGBTQ community and you've not dated anyone before. I feel like you will subconsciously, or maybe the people around you will think that, like, are you really queer if you haven't even dated, like, your own gender, for example? At some points, I feel like I have to prove my queerness because it is such a big part of me, you know, like, it's not just my romantic pursuits separate from me. It's in me, you know, like who you like, the way that you like people. It's in your heart. It's not like a separate part of you. That's what I feel. But yeah, I think another point I would like to talk about being unlabeled is the lack of community. I'm sure a lot of people can understand what I'm talking about. When you're unlabeled, you can't align yourself with certain groups of people. You can't say that, oh, I'm lesbian, and you can't have a circle of people who are lesbians around you because you're unlabeled. You don't fit anywhere. You literally can't be part of any little groups, which low-key made me really sad. So I think that's also partially why I subconsciously have the urge to label myself, even though I don't like being labeled, because I yearn for that feeling of community. But then again, I feel like being unlabeled outweighs that yearning of being in a community, so that's why I'm still unlabeled. When people ask me now, I'll just tell them I'm queer because it's an umbrella term, and I don't have to explain to them like how many percent of my romantic interest is in girls and how many percent of it is in guys. So yeah, people ask less questions when I tell them that I'm queer. And also, I don't have to explain to them that I'm also on the aro spectrum. Yay! Okay, this is a very big part of me that I want to share and I want to talk about because it's such a gigantic iceberg that I feel like I've never truly talked about the surface or the way down to the core before with any of my friends. Let's talk about aromanticism, or at least my experience thinking that I'm on the aro spectrum. I'm gonna be honest, I'm pretty sure I am on the spectrum, but I think it's also the combination of my attachment style that made me seem really like from romantic relationships. I mean, okay, I am turning 20, I'm 19 this year, and I've never dated anyone. I've only ever liked one person, and that was really recent as well. And then we didn't work out because of me, because I could not handle the feeling of wanting to crawl out of my skin and rip my eyeballs out. We'll talk about that, that a little bit later, but I also want to share with you how I realized that I'm aro. And I also want to preface this by saying aromanticism is a spectrum, and I don't want to say that I am aro straight up because I've liked someone before. And I know that I'm capable of liking someone, just not to the extent or the way that usual people do. My therapist told me to not label myself as aro because she thinks that it's subconsciously like drawing me back from liking someone, which I think it might be true. Like, it's almost like an excuse for myself, like, oh, I can't go through with this because I'm aro, like, I just can't do it. But sometimes that feeling is so strong that I cannot do anything except for run away. So let me share with you the exact moment I realized I was definitely on the aro spectrum. So I think sometime 2 years ago, when I was, how old was I? I think I was 17, 18. And someone from school, he asked me out face to face. Okay. Shout out to him. Very brave. Honestly, respect. Like, I was really impressed that he managed to muster up enough courage to ask me out in person, face to face. Fire, right? But when he asked me, my hands turned clammy and I lost all my appetite. Honestly, felt like throwing up. And after that, I literally freaked out. Like, I was supposed to go eat lunch with my friend, but when I joined her in the canteen, I was literally freaking out. I was like, oh my god, and then I realized this is not a normal way that someone would react to receiving an invitation to go on a date. I realized that it's not normal to feel like throwing up or losing your appetite or literally like having your hands shake from how disgusted you feel. And I don't want to, it's not his fault. It's not his fault, guys. It's literally just the way my brain reacted. Like, it's really not his fault. He didn't do anything wrong. If anything, he like checked all the marks of how you're supposed to ask someone out. Very polite, very respectful, brave, but I was so disgusted. And that was the first time in my life I realized that uncomfortable feeling in my chest that eats my entire body up, that feeling was disgust. I always thought years before that I just had really severe commitment issues, which is like, it was wrong. It was not commitment issues. It was disgust. That uncomfortable feeling that would eat me up inside, that literally rendered me unable to speak with people that have romantic interest in me. It wasn't like fear of commitment. It was literally disgust. That disgusting, uncomfortable feeling. It was repulsion. This is the word that I've been looking for my entire life to describe these uncomfortable romantic situations. It was repulsion. I was repulsed. And honestly, after I realized that, I felt so much better because let me tell you the tale of a girl that liked me in the past. This was a couple years prior to this whole experience. We were really close friends. And then she confessed to me that she liked me romantically. And I want to say I was such an asshole. But back then, I had no idea that I was aro. And after she told me she liked me and all that, I just felt this like debilitating amount of discomfort in my body, in my chest, growing each time we talked, to the point where I kept blowing her off on plans because I could not deal with this, like, oh my god, I can't even express it in words. It feels like cotton balls are like packed to the max in my body. There's like no like air pockets. Like, that's how uncomfortable I felt. It was to the point where I couldn't even like meet her outside or meet up with her as friends. Like, I couldn't even continue our very good friendship because the feeling was so strong that I literally kept blowing her off on plans to the point where we stopped talking. My bad. 100% my bad. And then when the guy asked me out and then I felt like throwing up in the canteen, it clicked in my head that the feeling of repulsion, I felt this before. When she confessed to me. I realized that this uncomfortable feeling was repulsion. I connected these two events together and I realized, oh my god, it makes sense now. But also when I was freaking out to my friend about it, I told her, oh my god, am I never gonna get married? I was like, first I had to deal with the fact that I was queer. And then now I'm like aro, I'm like, what's next? Like, I cannot possibly be adding another one to my inventory, because the first one was already scary enough. I cried. And then this one, I felt like throwing up. I cannot handle a third one. So I was like, oh my god, I feel like there's no hope for me. I'm just gonna be single forever at this point. Yikes. I feel like every time I figure something out with my sexuality, I'm always like losing my mind. I'm always like, it's crazy because like no one tells you that you could be this or you could be that. No one presents you with these possible options. You have to figure out all on your own. And when you do, it's just like your eyes are opened for the first time in 5 years. That's what it felt like for me. But after understanding that I am aro, a lot of things made sense to me, like why I've never been in a relationship, why I've never liked anyone. You know, a lot of things just, the dots were connecting, which made me feel a bit at ease. It was also quite a sad realization that I could not love people romantically like how most people can. Let me pull up a quote to you from my notes app. Okay. And also, I want to say that a lot of aromantic people, they love being aro because there isn't that, you know, like you don't feel like you need to find a partner and whatever. And being independent is great. I am a very independent person, so it honestly works out for me. But I'm very soft-hearted actually, and I do have that yearning to be in a relationship sometimes. Probably not as much as normal people do, definitely. Because if I did, I would have done something about it. But sometimes I definitely do want to experience that teenage love, teenage relationships that everyone experiences. Everyone around me is experiencing. Let me find a note. I definitely have a few notes that are very relevant to my aromanticism. So I wrote that sometimes I feel like a dud, a manufacturing flaw, and a failure. Which is a very negative way to think about it. But I can't help it. I wish I could be normal sometimes. I wish I was just born as a straight girl and I can just have crushes on guys and be like that. But I cannot. I literally cannot do that. It literally feels like my heart is desaturated and a small chunk of it is just like someone ate it. So I can't, it just doesn't, the gears aren't turning as most people's hearts do. That's what it feels like. Let me read some more to you. I wrote that I cannot believe aromanticism will always be a part of me for the rest of my life. My heart can never love without reserve. Was I born this way? Sometimes I think it would make me feel a lot more alive to be able to love fiercely and selfishly. Last one to close up this little note app segment. It feels like I am a curse itself. I don't want to be dramatic, but that is really how it feels sometimes. I honestly wish I wasn't aro. I know, don't throw tomatoes at me. It's a very, I would say it's a pretty cool sexuality to have, but oh my god, it does not make it easy. Especially when there's a part of me that still wants to be normal, okay? And this topic is very uncomfortable to talk about, but I feel like it's very relevant, so I'll just quickly gloss over it. The person that I liked for the first time ever, I thought that my aromanticism wouldn't be in full effect because I was like, oh, I like this person and I don't feel anything that I used to feel when other people liked me. But I was wrong. It was just slower, but it creeped up in my veins to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. It was my fault also. Not that I wanted it to be, but sometimes, like in these situations, I just need to put myself first because it really feels like I'm gonna die if I don't get myself in this situation. Like if I remained in this situation any longer, it felt like my soul was going to leave my body and I would literally wilt like a rose. that is what being in a romantic situation feels like to me. It feels like I will die. It feels like something in my soul will break out of me forever, permanently. And I feel like I need to escape this, which is, I don't even like, you're not supposed to feel like you're in a life or death scenario when someone like has a crush on you. Like, unfortunately, that's how I feel. That's how I truly feel with every fiber of my being. Quite unfortunate, I would say. Yeah, quite unfortunate indeed. Anyway, the next point I have is never-ending questioning of my own sexuality. It's not as straightforward as people who are very sure that they are lesbian or they are gay, because when you're so sure, then you don't really have room to think about other possibilities. But I feel like as someone on a spectrum, it's really difficult for me to really gauge where I am on every spectrum. Recently, I keep this is really vulnerable, but I wrote a journal entry like a couple days ago. Am I a lesbian? That was the title of the journal entry. So I wrote at the end that I'll update this journal in like 3 months after I figured it out. I don't know yet. I can't tell you the answer. I don't know. I don't know. So the conclusion is indefinite as of now. But I was really happy being unlabeled for a long time, for a couple years. But recently, I just keep thinking like, damn, I don't want to date a man. Like, I don't want to date boys at all. Like, currently, in this period of time. Don't know whether that thought process will last forever. That's why we will see. But currently, I just cannot imagine being with a guy at all. Oh my god, can I also say, I feel like girls don't hit on me. What is it about me, guys? Do I look straight? Don't say yes. Look at my septum piercing. Straight girls can't do this, right? This is 10 gauge, by the way. Straight girls don't stretch out the septums like baddies do. Shout out to girls though. Shout out to straight girls and not straight girls. I love girls. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. But I wish women liked me more. I think also because of my being on the aro spectrum, I don't like people often or at all. So I will never like pursue someone first because I won't develop feelings for anyone. Like, some people can interest me, like, oh, I think they're cute. But I won't like hit them up because there's no guarantee that I will develop feelings for them. Like, what if I hit on someone, right? And then they like me back. But I actually never liked them in the first place. I just thought they were cute. Like, that is so cruel. That's why I have never done that before, because I don't know if I can like them back. I would love to have more connections and speak to more girls. However, I don't want to like create any sad or heartbreaking situations. Therefore, I'm just gonna zip it and keep to myself. Yeah. And the last point I have is people who still try to put me in a box, and with a follow-up point saying they're not even interested in me. So I think a lot of queer people can relate to this point, where especially when they're straight and they're not very used to having conversations about queer people, especially when I tell them I am unlabeled, they're like, what is that? Like, literally, they don't know that that was an option. Like, they think that every queer person has to have a label to them. Which, honestly, I think it's more for straight people, because they need to, like, they want to understand, they can't understand. So I think that, like, for them, they need to have a label to understand queer people. But as a queer person, I feel like other queer people don't need to understand me that deeply. But I feel like straight people, they're just so confused by me. And they try to put a label on me. I will tell them I'm unlabeled, but I don't care. Like, I would like both boys and girls. Like, I'll just see how, I guess. And then they're like, so you're bisexual? I'm like, no, I just tell you I'm unlabeled. I don't want to be labeled. And then they'll say, okay, but if you did have a label, you'd be bisexual, right? I'm like, sure, yeah. So that happens a lot. At least they're not homophobic and throwing stones at me. So shout out to world peace. I'm kidding. World peace is not possible. But yeah, it's always people who like don't even have intentions of dating me. They're like, they want to figure me out. Maybe they do. I don't know. But yeah, like, damn, why are you so concerned? It literally does not concern you to know what sexual orientation I am, but you seem to be very interested, so strange, slightly. Yeah, that's all the points I have today. This was a very long video. I feel very out of breath, and I don't know if I'll actually end up posting this because it's very vulnerable, but I think it's a good topic to talk about, right? I think it was a good opportunity for me to really vocalize these parts of me and my experiences and to really put my feelings into words. I hope I didn't sound like a broken record, but this would be my first ever talking video if I post it. So I hope that the way I spoke about the order of things, it made sense and it wasn't too confusing. I hope I didn't jump around too much, but if you're still here, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have something to say, just comment it. I would love to talk to you and to feel like there's actually someone here. So thanks for watching.